is our first meeting of the summer, official meeting. So congratulations to all of you. I see you've been doing things. Vinay's been doing things in the community area and in like getting his code, coding stuff set up. Ujwal and Esmit are also starting out this digital basilaria project. So congratulations that you're getting a good start on things. First of all, I guess I'd ask, does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask? Things that have happened over the course of the week that they want to ask about? I know we've been talking on Slack, but Vinay?
Yeah, I don't have any.
Okay. All right. So I don't know if anyone wants to show anything that they've done over the course of the week. You're welcome to do anything like that if you want during the meeting. We'll start with like a show and tell usually, where you can bring some code or some issue that you have, and we can talk about it together. So, but I think this week probably not. I think we're probably okay. Why don't we go over? I mentioned last week in our introductory meeting that we would have these project boards that we would go to every week. So we're going to do that now. So the first one is GSOC 2019. So let me post a link in the window for that. In the chat window. And this is for Vinay, but I think Ujwal and Asmat can push stuff to this as well if they have things to contribute. So Vinay, this is your board here. If you go to this repo link that I just posted and you click on the Projects tab, and you select DevoWorm Summer of Code project.
Yes, I can see that.
What was that?
I can see that.
Okay, good. Thank you. So now I don't think we posted anything yet on this. So it's a completely open board. So what we're going to do is we're going to populate this board with issues. And I know you've still been working on your community stuff, but can you maybe come up with a couple of issues we could put on the board? And you think of things that maybe you want to start on now or start on sort of in the community period or when the community period ends?
Yeah, I have something in my mind. Like I mentioned that in the proposal also, like to get the environment set up, to get my development environmental setup. So over the past week, I have set up that example plugin, and for the next week, I thought of putting some Python scripts into that plugin so that I can manipulate an image with Python code.
Okay.
So that is what I had in my mind. Yes.
So how do we want to do this in terms of issues? So the way this works is we'll click on this plus button at the top of to do, and we'll give it a short name. So what let's say issue number 1. What's the name that you want to give it?
We start getting worked with Python scripts, like how to add Python scripts to plugin. Get to know the workflow for that.
All right.
Get familiar with Python scripting. I think that might be a good title.
Python scripting?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll change that, but see what happened here is I added this, when I put the words in, I added this as a thing on this board under to do. Now I'm going to convert it to an issue. So I click on these 3 buttons at the top right-hand corner of the screen, and I go to convert to issue. It's a drop-down. And it'll convert this note to an issue. It'll say start writing Python scripts. I can edit the title to Python scripts. Then I can say I guess, Python scripts made compatible with plugins or something like that. I mean, just something so that you can remember kind of what it's about. And then click on the green button, Convert to Issue. And now you should have issue number 4, Python scripts.
Yes, yes, I can see that.
Okay. And so now it'll be an issue that you will have to do. And then every week we'll go through this board and we'll see if it's already in progress. So I guess you've already got it in progress. So we'll put that
Yes,
over in
I
progress.
just started it.
Yeah. So we'll move that
I
to
started
the
it
in progress.
yesterday.
What is that?
Yeah, I started it yesterday. Yeah, it's in progress now.
Okay. So it's good. And now, so can you think of some other issues that we might address in the next couple weeks?
In the next couple of weeks, I have my deadlines like prepare slides for this presentation thing. I'm writing some notes so that whatever I find in my research, all those things, I'll be pushing that to the repo so that the future contributors can see that directly. So they'll exactly know what I worked on, what I found, and all. So that I have in my mind for the next 2 weeks. And parallelly, I'll be working on this setting up my environment.
Okay. We'll convert that to an issue as well. Now, I mentioned this to Azmat and Ujwal, and it has to do with, I don't know how you feel about digital notebooks, using those for documenting code, but I think it's a very useful thing to do.
Yeah, like it's good to document in Python notebooks. Like we have done that before, and like we use both Jupyter and Colab. Like I'm slightly like biased towards Jupyter, but like we both use Jupyter and Colab, so it should not be a problem. So yeah, we can do that. And regarding the project, also I had some questions. So should I address that like at the end or right now?
Well, we'll do it in a little bit. So
Yep.
let me finish this board first, and then. So for Vinay, I'm going to put another issue on this board, and that's set up digital notebook. And this will be, when you start coding, when you produce code. So you'll find you can use either Colab or Jupyter Notebooks. And so Jupyter Notebooks is specific to Python, whereas Colab is the thing that Google uses for more specific to machine learning. But and you can ask Azmet about this because he knows about how they work. You'll put your code in these kernels. So when you set up your environment, you'll have kernels, and you'll put code in each of these kernels. You can put code, you can run code in these kernels. It can be like Python, or it can even be like Markdown notes. And so, you can actually make it interactive. And the idea is to make this interactive so that people can, go to this code maybe in a year and run it without too much problem. So I'll put in the note documentation, interactive code. Okay. So now we have this.
I don't have any problem with that. Like I have some experience with Jupyter Notebooks and as well as Colab. I've been using that very frequently since the last 4-5 months like that. So I'm pretty okay with it. Yeah.
Good. Okay, and then let me make a note here too. I'll leave it up to you. I would prefer Jupyter Notebooks just because it's something that the org uses, but we can also use Colab. it's up to you really. So as long as it's something that people can access, and that's the whole idea. But that'll be, that'll be when you start coding. I would just recommend for everyone when you do an experiment or you're working on code at all, just try to, keep it in notebooks so that we can go back and review it, in the meetings, but also so that you can, have a version that people can run later on. And then, we might use it for an educational purpose. Like, down the line, people might want to learn how this works, or, how to do this sort of thing that you're creating in this project. And so we can actually use that as a tool for them to kind of interact with the code and figure out, learn something about it. So we have now we have on this board, we have a bunch of issues. And so we've already started one, and we have a couple of them. I think I'll put prepare slides for presentation and in progress as well. So now you have a couple of issues in progress and a couple of issues in to do. And so we'll go back to this board next week, and we'll look at what we have to address, where it is in the pipeline.
Yeah, sure. Looks good to me.
Okay. Any other issues that you can think of that you might?
I personally did not get any issues, except for the fact that I initially started setting up my environment with IntelliJ IDE instead of Eclipse, because I thought I already have some experience with Eclipse, but I thought I can use this time to learn to work with IntelliJ. But I had some problems with setting up the run configuration, so I had to come back to Eclipse and then set up the things right. That was the only issue that I faced in the last week, but now I think I caught up to those things. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, you mentioned that in one of your messages, so you feel comfortable with that now, and you shouldn't have any problems.
Yes, I'm comfortable with Eclipse, and I think I'll be working on with Eclipse only.
Okay, that's good. All right, thanks. I think we're all set for now. So, like I said, and then if you have any ideas during the week for issues, if there's something that when you're working you think of, you can come to this board, and I think you're a collaborator on it, so you should be able to post issues and post your own issues. And then, when the meeting will review them, so we can add them during the week as they come up, and then we'll just see how they, we might combine issues, we might break them apart, but that's the way we're going to, kind of address things. So that's good, and I think that's a good start. Okay, now, Ujwal and Asmit, you guys, congratulations on starting the Digital Basilaria project, which is a little bit different here. So this, actually, I have to tell you how this came to be. I know I kind of just dumped these images on you, but so we have another collaborator in the group. He's a senior scientist. His name is Dr. Richard Gordon, and he's interested in a lot of different types of biology and development, and he does a lot of work on something called diatoms, which are actually plants, but they form these shells that grow in a way that are really interesting. They grow. They don't really have the standard embryo, but they grow throughout their lives, and they form these shapes. And we can get more into I can send you more information on diatoms as we go along. But the idea here is that they have a lot of interesting behaviors, and they have a lot of interesting growth patterns that no one's really analyzed too much before, at least computationally. And so what I gave to you was this organism called Basilaria. And you can see from the videos, if you watch them, it's a series of these filaments that are joined together in a, I guess, like a colony or a multicellular organism. And they live in the ocean. They live in, fresh water. I guess they live in, a variety of habitats and water. And what they do, which is unique, is they have these unique movement patterns. So they actually, they start in this collapsed form where you have all these filaments stacked together, and then they move in a certain direction. and they move by the filaments kind of moving against one another, and they kind of zip along in these, you'll watch the videos, you'll see how they move. And the idea is that if we can digitize these cells or these filaments and like see what the cells, the shape of the cells, maybe track their movement over time, we can get a better understanding of that. But that, of course, requires us to take these videos and like segment the images, and then then we have a digital representation. We can see what's happening. So I guess both of you have seen the repository for this.
Yes. Yeah. So like our final goal is to make a sort of the same virtual organism, just in for visualization terms. Like we have to, like we need a visualization of that organism. Finally, like so that's a final aim.
Yeah. So I guess the first step, I guess, in that is to create like a digital representation. So like the idea is to take each, I had you take the movies apart, and then now you're going to take, each frame, and you're going to run an algorithm that will identify the cells. And then, you can do that for a bunch of different frames. And then, so you have labeled like frames, and you have labeled cells. And then once that's all worked out, then you can like figure out, you can map like a specific cell and a specific time point, and then you can look at it over time once you have the data in place. So it's a matter of getting the numbers out of the images, and then once that's done, you can do a lot more interesting stuff. I mean, like simulations and analysis, and
Okay.
so
Yeah.
yeah. So Asmet had some questions. You might as well bring them up now that you were going to ask me.
Yeah, the first step only. So like our first step, we have thought is to basically we need a model to train so that we can finally get a segmentation code. So that for that, like we need to label some images by hand or like some other code, because we have for every video we have around like on average 1,000 pictures, so 1,000 images. So out of them, like to create a well working model, we would need to label like some substantial amount of images, like around 100 to 100, like in 2080 ratio. Like that's an average we take. But like we need to first of all label a lot of images. So for that, like what would you recommend, like to label them by hand, or like just marking the boundaries of some random images from the videos, or like using another code for that?
Well, so you were talking about the masks I was talking about in
Yeah,
Slack.
the mask.
Okay. So the masks idea is something we came up with in 2017. And so a lot of these images, you can't really tell the exact boundaries of the cells. And so how do you get, like, if you ran an algorithm, how would it be able to segment the cell along the boundaries? And the answer might be is to create a training set. And the training set, I think probably like maybe 40 or 50 images where the cells are marked off, like either by hand or by taking the contrast and changing it so that you only see the boundaries of those cells. Something that basically demarcates the boundaries of the cells. So like if you use a contrast method, you might play with the contrast so that you just have like the edges that show up, and then you might go in by hand on each of those. If you have a set of 50, you would drop the contrast to some level where you can only see the boundaries, and then you would then touch up the edges so that they're clean, and then that would be the training set. And then you'd use that training set, you'd train a model, and then you'd have a testing set where you'd have the larger data set, and you'd run it and see what your accuracy was. And then you'd get a certain accuracy, because it has to know what the shape of the cells are, the filaments. but it also has to have a variety of exemplars. So you have, they're oftentimes in different positions. Oftentimes, they're moving against one another, or they're moving away from one another. Those are like good exemplars because it gives the algorithm some idea of what they look like in movement. So I don't know so there's I don't know what kind of a training set you'd need. I don't think it needs to be very big. It just needs to be something that gives the algorithm some idea of how to, what they look like.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
So
okay. So what we are thinking is that we are trying to create binary mask for the images.
I'm having
So that the
trouble.
background
I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you type in the chat because it's like really garbled?
can you repeat? I didn't get it. I think there is a network issue or something.
Okay. Yeah, can you type in the chat? I can't. Yeah, I can't make out. Okay. Well, chat is up here on the side. I don't know why it's so garbled, but it's like I can't really make out the words. So, we're thinking to create a binary mask. You could use a binary mask where it's like the values are 0 and 1, and the 1 is the boundary around the cells, and then the 0 is the background. That would be good. You could use other strategies too. But basically, but of course, you want to make sure that it's like just the cell boundary and not like, because it might pick up other things, like space between. It basically, you'd have to make sure that it was picking up only those. It'd have to be a little bit more specific than just, finding because it's like, yeah, you can apply CNN on that, maybe mask or CNN. Yes. Yeah, you could, then there are different strategies for like different algorithms you can use. Exactly. Yeah, so if you read in the chat, and Ujwal is typing in the chat his thoughts on this. Yeah, I think it would look more or less like a binary mask. So you'd have like the boundaries would be clean, and it would delimit the cells, and then it would know kind of what to look for in terms of the boundaries. The boundaries would have to be clean. It couldn't just be like, a mass, like anything that's sort of darker in the image. Because this is what we ran into in 2017. We were creating masks that you'd create a mask like that where it had like a binary image, and then like it would maybe pick up most of the boundary, but there'd be like ambiguity, maybe where a cell splits, where there's the boundary splits between two cell walls or something. That wouldn't pick that up, so you'd have to kind of define that by hand, or sort of I don't know if the algorithm would pick up the edge, but I'd beware about that too, because you'd have you're going to have a lot of false positives if you get it wrong. If your strategy is wrong, it's going to pick up a lot of false positives. But that's something that you can work through once you start doing it, doing the training. So why don't we go to the project board for Digital Basilaria. So I have the link for Digital Basilaria in here. You can see that. We'll go to this board, and we'll go to Projects, the Projects tab, and then we'll go to this board. And so with this one, it's a little bit different because we've already been putting issues and addressing them. So you can see it's pretty active. So we have to do, in progress, and done. And so we already have one thing done, which is split Basilaria videos into frames. And we have those up in the GitHub repo posted. And so those videos, originally I think the files were truncating, but I think if you like clone the directory or something, you should be able to get all of them.
Yeah, like that's the problem with the GUI. It does not show more than 1,000 files in a repository. So in our folder. So like if you clone it or download it, you will get all the files.
Okay. And then a note was put in the README on that.
Yeah, I've added the note.
Okay. So see what I did here in the done category. Okay. It was actually an issue where a tag was put on it called bug. So then that brought people's attention to the bug, and then we solved it, and it was put into done. So that's another thing that we can do with this board is we can tag issues by their like maybe their urgency, or if there's a problem, or if we want to come back to it later, if it has to do with some sub-project, there are tags you can use, and that's very useful, I think, for I would encourage you to use tags, because then it helps us think about like, how we maybe want to address the issue. So then we have the in progress column, which is now what we're doing, choosing a segmentation procedure in model evaluation. So number 2 and number 7, although they're discontinuous in number, are actually together, because we have now, I talked to both of you, and you were talking about using a watershed procedure. And then the watershed procedure turned out to be, not so great in terms of its resolution. So now, and this is before we do the mask part, I wanted you to come up with a couple of candidate models. And it looks like Ujwal's been thinking about this in terms of candidate models. But to actually talk between the two of you and think about, like, what are the candidate models that we can use for this, and then what are they, and then which ones do you want to implement? Maybe, Ujwal could do 2 or 3 models, Asmit could try 2 or 3 models, and then, compare notes on the best one. So that's what this model evaluation is. And it's not formal model evaluation, but what you would do is pick a couple of models that you think would work, and then, assign which ones you want to test, and then at the end, you would evaluate their performance. And that's pretty easy, because you can see, like, what, there's statistics, summary statistics you can use, but also, like if the results look good. And that's something that I'll work with you on. So then those 2 issues are in progress, and we'll kind of keep those there now. And then this manual mask creation, I might move that into in progress, just so that we have it ready. Let me see if we have, like, I don't know if we can put a tag on it right now. Okay, so we can maybe put a tag on it. Labels. Okay, so here's the labels. If I click on the task, there's a thing that pops up on the right-hand side of the screen that shows all of the details. And down below, there's it says labels, and then there's a little gear. If you click that gear, you find a series of labels that you can put on. We have bug, and then we have duplicate. We have a couple of these. So, I mean, I don't know. I can't think of anything we can apply to it, but I'll probably do it after the meeting. And so this is sort of now in progress. We'll say, okay, now we're going to create these masks. And it's, again, it's up to you guys to figure out how big of a training set you want to use. And then to, kind of come up with a procedure for creating the binary maps of these things. So, like, basically it's taking the image, finding a way to, like, define the edges of the cells. I don't think you have to draw the whole thing by hand. I think you can use, like, thresholding techniques, or, playing with the contrast and the saturation of the image. There are ways you can like cheat to get to pull up what's basically just the background. And then if you have to go in manually and clean it up, then that's up to you what kind of a training set you want. But that's the next step, is the training set, but also thinking about the models you want to use. And then the models, I don't know how you want to implement them, but then that's also a set of issues that we'll kind of come up with when we when we know kind of what the models are. So have you guys thought about what kind of programs do you want to use what kind of programs did you use to run the watershed algorithm?
We used OpenCV for that.
Okay.
So like we took the code and applied it to the image and tweaked it a little to get a better one. Like it's not the best, so we'll use other other algorithms for it.
Okay. Yeah, and like OpenCV is a good place, I think, to start with. I think that runs a variety of algorithms that would be useful, and I think it's good to start with OTSU threshold. Okay, so I think it's good to start probably with something like that to show you like what how you're going to approach the problem, because I think if it's too easy, you get the impression that this is a real easy thing, and it's not. There's a lot of massaging that you have to do to run these kind of models. So I think you guys are on the right track, and I will give you the opportunity to put some issues on the board. So can we talk, what are some of the issues that you guys think would be good issues for the next week or so?
Our first thing would be to get the first training set, the binary mask for like creating the first set of images for our training set, and then thinking about the models we have to use. Like we need a training set in accordance with the model, so like we need to take care of both of them simultaneously. So we'll be thinking about the models and the training images simultaneously for the next couple of weeks.
Okay, so define training set and define
like training set for as you said, for creating binary masks, like labeling the images for our model in order to segment our model's aim is to segment our images, and we need a training set for that. And for that training set we'll be using we'll need labeled sort of labeled or differentiated images in terms of boundaries. So we'll be making defined boundaries for the Basel area in like around 50-60 images, or the amount like we'll decide according to the model we'll choose. So like we can divide into two parts, like making our images, making our labeled images, I would say, or like
okay. And
yeah, like
okay. Okay, that was pretty much okay. So I'll create an issue. Define training set, and then maybe we have model evaluation, but maybe before that we need to do model. Let me move this model evaluation back from in progress to do, because I think there's another step in between or before that, which is model selection. And so another thing we can do with this, and we'll move that to in progress. Another thing we can do with this board is we can assign issues. So I assign the split Basel area videos into frames to both of you. And then let's see if I can assign this one to you guys. I'll assign model selection to both of you as well. So you'll see that I have assigned it to both of you. The mask creation as well. We'll do that. We'll assign it to both of you. Alright. And then basically it's all going to be pretty much, you two, and then me. But I put them on. I put the assignments on there so that we kind of know. I just wanted to show you that feature. It's not essential for this project, but it's if you're working in bigger groups, it's something that you might want to do if someone, people don't really want to do something and you have to assign them a task and you want to make sure that they do it. So I'm just, I'm trying to give you pointers on project management as well in the summer. So any other issues about Ujwal? Can you think of any other issues that we need to put up on the board? Can anything that you think is, we already, if we want to refine some of these issues too, that's okay. That's often has to be done, because when we get into something, sometimes we think of it very broadly and then we want to get down to like the specific details. We want to create other issues. Okay. Azmet, do you have any other issues that you can think of?
I think like broadly that's it for the next week or so. Like in the process, we'll be getting a lot of issues. So like week by week, I guess we'll be updating them.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we'll be addressing these things as they come up. That'll be the. Okay. Okay, good. Yes. Okay, Ujwal. And we'll be updating issues. Good, yeah. And just go ahead and put them on the board if you feel like that's, and then we'll review them. So, okay. Well, thank you for that. So back to Vinay. Vinay, how are you feeling about your first week in the community period? You were able to present to the office hours on Slack, and how do you feel about that? Do you think that you'll be able to make some maybe connections in the community, or?
Yeah, it was pretty good. And coming to the presentation part, I thought I could be a little more, I could tell it a little more shortly and in a brief manner. I got into every detail and that took up some time. And I think I'm making some pretty good connections. Like I've been in touch with Chiwai this time. And also, you remember that webinar that we attended, that Metasil conducted, intersection between deep learning and neuroscience, right?
Yeah.
I received a mail today from Priyal. He's from Metasil, asking me to see whether if I can collaborate with them or from any sense. So we have a meeting tomorrow regarding that. But that will be after this GSOC period, of course.
Yeah.
So I think I'm maintaining some good connections with the community.
Well, good. Yeah, that's good. Metacell is, Stephen Larson he's the sort of one of the main people in OpenWorm. That's actually his company. And so he runs these webinars, and as we're in the inner circle of the OpenWorm Foundation, we also kind of, they actually put on a lot of good webinars. But that was the first one where they did machine learning and neuroscience. And for all of you, if you're interested in machine learning, another group of people were kind of doing the same thing is the movement. And so you talked to Chi Wai, or you met him this office hours. He's part of that movement group. And so they actually have a lot of segmented images of worm movement. So they actually look at worms in a dish under a microscope, and they track worms and their movement across the dish, and they try to define different movement patterns. And so first of all, they have a huge open database of data, but also they have, they have employed machine learning in the past, and I'm not really sure what their state of the art is, but that's one area where I think there's going to be some more interest in machine learning, we've been trying more generally across the org. We've been trying to bring a lot of the data and maybe interest in machine learning together. It's been a little tough because it's kind of hard to make it into one package, but we've also considered creating like a Kaggle tournament for people where, you understand what the Kaggle tournament is, right? It's called Kaggle, and they have different data sets that they post, and different teams will take the data and analyze it with their own algorithms, and then they'll compete to see who does best in terms of performance. And so, it's really interesting because they're cash prizes. Now, we would do a Kaggle tournament where there's probably no cash prize, but you would have there would be some other incentive, like a authorship on a paper or something. But I mean, that's the sort of direction I think the org is moving in. The question is like, can we realize it, and can we get people involved, sort of on the ground floor of that initiative? And I think Vinay, of course, is making connections, and I encourage Asmit and Ujwal, if you're interested in that, we can talk a little bit more about it, in terms of how we might realize that. And so I think it's interesting. I think that's a good place to look into further. So, all right. So everyone's doing okay on their Everyone's doing okay on their presentations that they are to give. So I put a date of 2 weeks from now. So the meeting on the 31st is when I tentatively would like to have these presentations. And Vinay asked me today if it's on the 31st. It is the 31st. That's the Friday meeting. If you want to do it beforehand, you could do that. But I think 2 weeks is a good time for you to come up with your presentations and, do a good job and really kind of think about like next steps in terms of, and like for Ujwal and Asmit, for Asmit, he wrote his proposal on this project. So his presentation would be his proposal for this project, and then maybe what he would like to do, next steps within the org. So his vision would be a little bit broader than say Vinay's, where Vinay would be like presenting on what he wants to do this summer, wants to accomplish. Asmit might just simply, have like a little bit of broader vision in terms of the open org. How could he contribute to the org? And Ujwal, of course, did a different project, so his presentation will be on that project proposal. But then he'll also have a vision for what he wants to do within the org. So I think you guys, you all attended the office hours. You kind of saw what other people were doing. I encourage you to go to the different channels and kind of, lurk and take a look at what's going on, and ask people questions. I think even if you just like contact them in a DM and ask them, what are you up to? They might be able to point you to some resources. I sent you some resources from our open house in 2016, and I know you accepted the invitation to share those things. That's actually a good reference for what at least has been going on in the org, the different projects, and to get a taste for it. So if you have any further questions about that, ask me or someone else, and then we can update you properly on where we're going. And because I gave you that archive of materials, that's like a couple years old now. So there's been progress since then, and then you'll be maybe more up to date. But I think this is kind of a period where you should take advantage of being in an org where a lot of things are going on, to just get a sense of what's possible too. And so that's, and then the community period ends on actually I think it ends at the beginning of that week. So there's like one more week of community period technically, but if you want to make connections with people, you can do it throughout the summer. It's not, it's not like forbidden. And I think that's it for me. Does anyone else have any questions? Any other questions?
I don't have any questions, but I have a small suggestion for maybe Ujjwal and Asmit.
Okay.
Like this project that they're working on, digital basilaria, that really sounds interesting. Like you gave an introduction to that topic, right? That was really excellent, sir. And I think as they're working on it, so they can maintain a README on the front page, because some new people might come across this repository and they might turn away, because there's not much information of what the aim is and what the current progress is. Probably they can maintain sections like the aim, the introduction to the like why this is important, and some contribution guidelines like community guidelines. And I think in that way we can attract some new people, and we might lose some contributors without a good readme. So that's my small suggestion for Ujjwal. If they're interested, they can work on it. Probably they can add it to that issue.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. Thank you. Yeah, it just kind of like came up in the last week, so we started this in the last week. But I think let's put a to do. Let's say, and that'll be like I'll have to add some things to that as well, because that's like the background. Yeah, I think definitely, especially over time. Like I think right now maybe it's a little premature, but I can add in some more information about like, the background of the project, like what the aims are, and then we can all kind of contribute. Like Ojwan Asmik can, edit them, or like put up suggestions for, things that they think are good aims. So I think we should do it collaboratively, because I think, you guys are, doing the work. You're kind of like working on this, working this out. So that's good. Thank you, Vinay. So, all right. I think that's good. Any other questions, comments?
Nothing else from my side.
Okay. Esmit or Ujwal, do you have any? Okay. All right. Good. Okay, if there are no more questions, then I guess we can go.